You want to talk about a drunk ending to a game. Dallas Cowboys, Washington Commanders. So first of all, it was about as bad of a special teams game as you could have possibly imagined. Okay, you consider the fact that Washington's kicker, Austin Seibert, we'll talk about his extra point miss, obviously, but Austin Seibert in this game goes 2 for 3, 0 for 2 on extra, 2 for 3 field goals, 0 for 2 on extra points. Brandon Aubrey hits all 4 of his extra points, but Brandon Aubrey, maybe the best kicker in football, goes 2 for 4. It was like, what is going on in this game? There's missed field goals, missed kicks. It's kind of a messy game from start to finish. You got a situation, we're coming into the fourth quarter, folks. This game is Dallas 10, Washington 9. It was not an aesthetically pleasing football game. And then the fourth quarter arrives. Both teams are scoring. Dallas has got a big lead. All of a sudden, Washington comes down. They cut it to a 3-point game. We're thinking, oh man, this could get interesting. Cavante Turpin makes a big mistake on the kickoff, freaking muffs the thing, goes back, picks it up, does the juke move or the spin move heard around the state capitol. I know that's not where the Commanders play, but you get the idea, and takes it to the house. Cavante Turpin's got a case. He might be the best kick return in the league. He's one of the few legitimately talented guys Dallas has got. Takes it to the house. We're thinking, it's probably over. 3 minutes to go, 10 minutes. Washington's probably not coming back. All of a sudden, boom, 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 get a field goal down 7. Dallas punts. It's like, okay, the Commanders got a fighting chance. And Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin down inside, down at their own 14-yard line, 21 seconds to go. At that point, it's like, hey, just get into Hail Mary range and maybe we'll pull off what we pulled off against the Chicago Bears. Deep ball, Terry McLaurin. I don't know what happened with Dallas defensively. It was a complete breakdown. Terry evades like 7 Cowboys, takes it to the house. Okay, with 14 seconds to go, and it was 14 seconds to go, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's pandemonium in Washington, and the Commanders about to tie it. And my biggest pet peeve, one of my biggest pet peeves in sports, comes to fruition again. In a game where for 3+ hours, these guys are fighting like crazy just to find a way to claw and grab a W. Cowboys and Commanders, this historic rivalry. And Terry McLaurin makes the play maybe of his career. Terry McLaurin's a great player. Maybe the play of his career. Jayden Daniels, oh my gosh, redemption for what was a terrible game up to that point. And Austin Seibert shanks it left. This is why I get really pissed off when some members of the media and fans, and I think it's different in college. College is different, other kids. NFL, these are grown men, these are professionals. When there's a level of sympathy for a missed, particularly by kicker standards today, a chip shot kick, clutch kick to tie the game, go to overtime, than what I'm comfortable with. Folks, Austin Seibert does not have to memorize a playbook. Austin Seibert does not have to go through grueling drills, at least to the level that, and by the way, I'm not saying Austin Seibert is a great athlete. All kickers are. But he's not going through grueling drills like a Terry McLaurin is. Guys like that. He's having to memorize a playbook, understand protections, break down a defense, all these different things the way Jayden Daniels has to. His job is to hit the ball through the upright. And he didn't do that. He didn't do his job. Quarterback doesn't do his job, we're all over him. If Terry McLaurin had dropped that pass, we're criticizing Terry McLaurin. If Dan Quinn has a bad coaching game, we're on Dan Quinn. If the defense doesn't play well, what? But all of a sudden the kicker, just because I guess they're not as big and strapping guys as the quarterback and the receiver and some of the other skill position guys on the team, we're not as hard on them, which I think is a double standard. Kicker is one of the most important players on an entire field. That you look at the top scorers in the NFL, they're all kickers. All-time leading scorer, Adam Vinatieri. I believe it's Adam Vinatieri. I think he passed Morton Anderson. Is a kicker. One of the most important players on your team. So when he screws up, we should criticize him. So that's off my soapbox on that. Washington did something because people are saying, oh, it's Kliff Kingsbury, and it's the classic Kliff Kingsbury second half collapse. Kliff Kingsbury, by the way, for those that don't know, offensive coordinator for the Commanders, used to be the head coach for the Arizona Cardinals and head coach at Texas Tech when he had Patrick Mahomes in college, notorious for second half collapses. For defensive coordinators getting film on his teams, it's like, oh, they figured him out. That has something to do with it. It really does. But see, folks, I like to think a little bit deeper than that. I like to look at the fact that in sports, Vibes matter. In sports, I'm not a believer in sports gods or anything of that sort, but there's certain things you do where you're just tempting, call it fortune, call it fate, call it whatever you want to call it. Go so far as to say divine intervention, whatever. You don't play with those things, ever. And that's exactly what the Washington Commanders did a few weeks ago against my Pittsburgh Steelers. What did they do, you ask? Well, something in the same, not quite as similar, but under the same umbrella as what the Jacksonville Jaguars did last year to Pittsburgh. Jacksonville comes in. Boy, this is the new red-hot up-and-coming team. I was really high in the Jaguars last year, still pretty high in Trevor Lawrence. And, man, they're playing great football, and they go to Pittsburgh, and they put it on the Steelers, and they're going to – and he got this young man for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's a defensive player, I believe. He goes near the stands. He takes a terrible towel out of the hands of a Steelers fan. And he like wipes his butt with that. Like it's just doing obscene gestures with the towel. And the Jaguars fell apart and collapsed in the second half of the season. Washington was a hot new thing, baby. 7-2, the shock of the NFL. Jayden Daniels gonna run away with Offensive Rookie of the Year. And since they tempted fate, since the Washington Commanders organization said, hey, a lot of teams have rally towels. Nothing wrong with that. You can have your own rally towel. But it's going to be our own version of the terrible towels. Jayden Daniels, ladies and gentlemen, hadn't been very good. 3 touchdowns, 3 picks, throwing for 222 pass yards per game. Only completing, this is a guy who's completing at one point early in the season, like 80% of his throws, completing 61% of his throws, and has a passer rating of 77. He's been a shell of himself the last 3 games. We can blame it on Kliff Kingsbury. Have at it. We can blame it on the fact that Philadelphia's got a great defense last week. So does the Pittsburgh Steelers 3 weeks ago. The Cowboys do not at all. Divisional familiarity, maybe that's something to do with it. What I know is you don't tempt. You don't tempt fate. You don't tempt the fact that the curse of the terrible towel is not something to be played with. With a franchise like the Steelers who have won 6 Super Bowls, a franchise like the Steelers who have been relevant, who have been great over the course of the entirety of the Super Bowl era. Folks, you do not play with the curse of the terrible towel. You disrespect that thing, bad things will happen to you. Ask Jacksonville last year. Ask the Washington Commanders this year. It may sound crazy. It may sound out there. But I'm just looking at the fact that since such a curse was tempted, they haven't been playing very well. Just take that for what you will. That's what I'm observing. That's what we're seeing right now. And so Washington, listen, they're in a spot where their next few games, home for the Titans, at the Saints, like those are winnable games. But home for Dallas with the Cowboys on a short week, that also should have been a winnable game. That also should be a game. You're favored by 10 points. Like, you got to take care of business. You got to beat the Cowboys. It's like a moment where it's like, okay, we've lost 2 games in a row. Let's get the ship righted. Let's win this game. Let's at least try and keep pace with Philly in the NFC East. Even if we don't catch the Eagles, which we weren't going to anyway, we're going to be in the playoffs. By the way, Commanders could still make the playoffs. But Tennessee just won. The Saints have new energy with their interim head coach. That seems to always happen in the NFL. Then they play Philly. Then they play Atlanta. Then they go to Dallas. You know, there are a lot of winnable games for the Commanders. This feels like 9 or 10 wins, which will get you in the playoffs in the NFC. But at the same time, you don't tempt the curse of the terrible towel. You just don't do it. You don't ask the Jaguars. It messed them up. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.